300 miles, 18,000 feet of climbing, and well, a crap ton of underbiking. I've got some thoughts on the bikepacking trip from Bend. If you watch day 5, you'll know that there was no context after pizza. So I wanted to make a little video just kind of talking about the trip, thoughts and feelings, and things like that. Firstly, big thank you to everybody who watched the Bikepacking Oregon videos, who hit the like button, who left a comment. To the new subscribers, thank you, really appreciate it. This trip was absolutely incredible, but at the same time, it was extremely hard to film. So that's kind of where I want to start off, is just kind of talking about the difficulty of this trip, not only just riding it, but filming it. So the Ring of Fire is technically a mountain bike route. It is doable, obviously, on a gravel bike. As you've seen, we did do it. There is a lot of sections that I say are geared towards gravel, but there is definitely a lot of sections that are geared more towards mountain bikes, or at least having suspension. There was a lot of sand, loose dirt. There was some really steep climbs, some technical sections on those climbs. The terrain was kind of all over the place. There was more rough terrain than there was just like super smooth, nice stuff. So that made filming this extremely challenging. If it wasn't for the camera on my TT bars, it would have been, I would have came home with next to no footage for this trip. So that's kind of the first thing I want to get out of the way and talk about on this trip, was just how hard it was to film. Honestly, I don't feel like I came away with the best footage from this trip. I'm happy for the views I got and stuff like that, and I am my own worst critic, but this trip was extremely hard to film. Whether it's we're on a technical climb, pulling out a camera, just even a small GoPro, hitting that button and trying to hold a camera while riding was super hard. Being able to just hit the button on my TT bars, take my hand off for a second to hit that button to film whatever's in front of me was super hard. And a lot of that was due to the fact that the terrain was so rough. Steep climbs, rocky climbs, even the gravel stuff or the big dirt roads were just super rutted or slow moving. So that was very challenging for this trip, was just filming this whole thing. I really tried my best, but it was super hard. Another challenging thing with this trip was we were in like kind of almost the same tree visual or desert visual nonstop. So anytime we were in trees, it almost looked the same. So it's like, what am I supposed to do with 40 miles of tunnel vision of trees? You know, it was very challenging to film this. And then you get into the desert, there's nothing really to show in the desert and things like that. So there was not a whole lot of like view visuals, unfortunately. There was not a lot I could point the camera and capture something else. And if there was, trying to hang on for dear life on my bike and trying to film it at the same time was really hard. That was one big challenge with this trip. On top of that, I feel like the really good views that we got to see, unlike other places that I've ridden, the views were so far out there that these little GoPro cameras can't capture them. Like the day 3, I think it was, when we got to the lookout tower and like we had all these massive mountain views, you can't see them. Like personally, I can see them, I can see the mountains and stuff, but pointing a little camera that has a wide angle lens at these expansive views it didn't come out very good. Unless you were physically in front of something, it was very hard to capture like the surrounding scenery and stuff. So that was one big thing about this trip that I just found challenging, was just filming it. More so when you're putting yourself through the ringer, it just was extremely difficult. Like, you know, you're going through the waves of the day and the trip and everything, and just constantly trying to capture and find something to film just posed a real big challenge in this. And nobody wants to watch a 30-minute video of me just yapping all day. They want to see what's happening. So I definitely had a phenomenal time. There's probably a lot of footage where it doesn't look like I'm having a good time, or I may seem like I'm grumpy. I was really just trying to be in the moment, but also there was a lot of stuff in the back of my mind that I'm dealing with that weren't currently happening, but are kind of happening behind the scenes and back home that I knew I was going to have to go home and deal with, and some other issues that were going on with equipment or whatever, which is going to be a whole separate thing at some point. But so I was just really trying to just enjoy and be present, but there's a lot of stuff where it was just, I was either totally concentrating on my body and getting my body through it, or my mind was drifting somewhere else with later problems. So the big thing that I really, really enjoyed about this route was how every single day there was this kind of like massive challenge. This route is so diverse, and a lot of the terrain was so different than what me and Steve normally ride, that every day there seemed to be some kind of like new challenge or new skill we had to learn to get through the day. Whether it was a massive climb, whether it was a super technical section, like I really enjoyed how diverse the route was, how challenging the route was. Some of the climbs were just mountain bike climbs, super technical, super steep, and like you had to kind of just tap into something completely different, and you really had to like step away from just, oh, we're gravel riding and we're just going to go straight and maybe there's some rock gardens. No, this was like full on, how do you move your body, how do you move your bike, how do you get yourself in a position to climb this or get over this or hike over this. Like, it was extremely diverse. I think that was the big takeaway that I fully enjoyed about this route, was just how challenging and how diverse each day was. It just felt like you woke up and like there was never really an easy day. There was always like, okay, you wake up, get ready, you go, and you knew at some point in the day there was going to be this massive challenge, obstacle, whatever you want to call it, that you're going to have to deal with to get through the day. I really love that. With that also said, it was very apparent real quick how much, and this is probably the first time I've ever come to this aha moment, how much I wish I had suspension. Smaller gearing. 20 percenters. I would like a 33 oval, please. Thank you. Don't think about that combination too hard. Just say yes. 33, 2.4s, full sess. All the things. I wanted all of it on this trip. The climbs were insanely steep. I did not have small enough gearing. Like, yeah, I got through it obviously, but a lot of this trip was underbiking, let's be honest. Having suspension, having lower gearing would have made a huge difference. Climbing 20, 25 percenters on a 50, 60 pound bike and a 38 tooth oval, it's like, yeah, give me a 34. That would have been much better. Give me some kind of suspension in the front, because even if you're only doing like 40 miles of riding, that 40 miles with 5,000 feet of climbing is super rough on the body. So just the washboard stuff, having suspension would have helped. The descents, a lot of the descents were super loose, super rocky. Like, there were some good ones, but there was a lot of descents where having suspension to soak that up, more so than a suspension stem, would have made a huge difference. While I'm super proud of me and Steve for like doing this whole route on gravel bikes and rigid gravel bikes, having suspension and bigger tires even, or lower gearing, would have made a huge difference in just not beating up the body so much. I'm super grateful to have really awesome friends that are just like, I come up with a stupid idea and they're just like, yeah, let's do it. They don't question it. They're just like, yeah, let's do it. Super grateful to have friends that are willing to just go and do these monumental things. So big thank you to Steven for not only taking the time to come out, dealing with me, which I'm not the easiest person probably to deal with on a day-to-day basis, but also just being an absolute savage and wanting to come and do something hard and push your body to its absolute limits. Like, I am super thankful for his friendship and his willingness to come out and do this with me. Like, it would have been a whole different trip if he hadn't been there, and having him there and sharing that experience, man, I am super grateful for him and thankful that he came out and was down for the whole thing. So thank you, Steven. I've also learned that after these kind of big trips, especially big bikepacking trips where it's over the day or two mark, I really need 24 hours to think about what has happened, because you go through so much in a day. And like I said, the route was so diverse and you were going through so many different challenges that after 5 days, your brain is literally scrambled. So I definitely have learned that I need at least 24 hours to kind of think about everything that has happened, think about how much fun I had or didn't have, and then be able to express it. And that was no different. Like, after day 5 of this trip, I was just like, my brain was mush. I couldn't think of anything to say, whether good or bad, about the trip. Definitely the big highlight for this trip that I think that made it more enjoyable was the fact that me and Steven decided early on that this was not a training ride. This was not a go out and smash thing. We were going to take the time and enjoy it. And the big highlight, honestly, was how much water there was to stop and refresh and enjoy. Like, we swam in a lot of different lakes and little creeks and all kinds of different things. And I really enjoyed that. I think that made this trip much more enjoyable, that it wasn't just pure sufferfest, that there was sections where we could just stop and relax, cool off, enjoy the scenery, enjoy what was happening. We weren't filling every day with 24 hours of riding. Like, yeah, we were putting in a good 6 to 10 hours of riding, but we were treating it more like an enjoyable trip instead of let's train and suffer type thing. So I think that was a big highlight, that we both were in that mindset. I have no doubt that if we really wanted to, that we could have had that route done in 2 to 3 days. I mean, it would have been hard and we would have been beyond wrecked, but we could have done that. But we were in the mindset to enjoy it. And the big highlight was for sure how much water there was to enjoy. I definitely was stoked on that. I love me a good swimming hole. I think another big highlight with this trip was just the skills that you're going to take away from this. Like, we really had to tap into a lot of different skill sets to get through each day. And like, I think that really just improves your bike handling, your comfort on a loaded bike, your comfort in different riding situations. Like, there was a lot I feel like we both learned of how to ride a bike differently and how to get through things. So that was monumental, taking that away, just feeling like I'm coming away with like some new skill sets on the bike. Yeah, that was pretty rad, because there were some really technical sections, climbing sections, where it was like being back on trying to remember how to ride a mountain bike through wild switchbacks and technical sections again. So it was kind of nice just to take you out of your little comfort box of what you normally ride, put you in something else, and see if you can learn and adapt. I really enjoyed that. The one really big challenge that I didn't really talk about too much is I did bikepacking across Washington, took a week off, went to the Washington coast to basically recover and reset. However, when I got to the Washington coast, the whole time I was there, it was in like low 60s, maybe 65. And then you tack on being at sea level. So by the time I got to Oregon, it was in the 90s, back at elevation. That definitely played a big factor in day 1 with the heat and the climbing. I noticed that. After day 1, I was pretty much good. I definitely noticed I had fatigue after day 1 with the climbing. My legs were very fatigued, and that made it kind of challenging for the whole trip until we got to day 4, where we did the biggest just smash fest ever. We did the big climb, which was like 2,000 something feet, and we just smashed it at like 230 watts or whatever it was, just nonstop the whole climb. And like, my legs were so fatigued, I didn't know I could tap into something like that. And we tapped into that, and it was completely doable. I was like, well, man, my legs are not going to work tomorrow. My legs felt just as sore the next day. And on the final section of that day after Sisters, we did it again. We just tapped into that 200 something plus watts and just completely shredded our legs. So while I was fearful and stressed about my legs being fatigued on day one, I also learned that that is more so in my mind. Yes, I can feel it, but my legs have the potential, even after completely smashed on day 4, to open up and really do something special and really produce power. That was a huge learning from this trip. Wild. Absolutely wild. Because that was a lot of elevation in a short amount of time. Day 1 was amazing. Like, you're always in like a high and like excited to start a trip and seeing what this is gonna start feeling like. And like the first day was really good, and like the little water area before the major climb was awesome, and the lakes that we got to stay at night were amazing. But I honestly think my favorite day had to be the day that we went and did Smith Rock. I think that day just really kind of challenged both of us. Steve with the big cliff drop and stressing out about that and getting the chicken legs. For me, it was just the technicalness and steepness and the switchbacks and learning that I don't do good going left on switchbacks. I think the Smith Rock day was just my favorite day. You take away all like the road section before, that was whatever, but that Smith Rock section was probably like my favorite thing out of the whole trip for riding, because the views were incredible, but the steepness and how much climbing you were doing and the switchbacks and having to hike a bike and just the sheer challenge of that day was probably my highlight. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed how technical that was. All in all, this trip really kind of opened up my mind of how much I enjoy a hard bikepacking trip in terms of the terrain. Like, I was like, okay, if I'm gonna keep going this route for sure, we got to look at bike options that is a little bit better suited for that. Lake Billy Chinook, that is one of the most beautiful lakes, reservoirs, whatever it is I've ever seen. That was extremely incredible. I wish I could have captured more of it, because you literally drop straight into this giant canyon, and here's this lake, and you go all the way down, you got these major cliffs, go across the bridge and stuff. I wish I could have spent a little bit more time at Lake Billy Chinook. I wish I could have captured it better. The hill into it was so insanely steep, and again, I was dealing with some bike issues I'll talk later in another video, so it just was really hard again to film that. Yeah, that was super beautiful. Day 5 was hands down my least favorite day. Like I said in the videos, if you watched them, we changed the start of the route and we changed the end of the route. There might have been another day where we just tacked on something, but day 5 was just my least favorite day. The roads were just absolutely terrible. I think the issue that I had with day 5 was it started out on such a high, because we left the lake and like got to ride all this crazy single track around the lake, and then it just did this crazy single track on your way to Sisters before it got into this section that we added on. And the roads that we added on were just miserable. They were super rocky, they were super loose, they were super slow moving, they were rutted out, they had just, it was the worst of the worst. So I fully did not enjoy that day. Now, if I had stuck to the original route, would have been better. I don't know. You know, it is what it is. Day 5 was probably the worst video because A, I'm in a terrible mindset, but B, you're just getting beat up. That's all day 5 was just getting beat up after your body was already pretty trashed from the last 4 days. And I think by the time we got to Sisters, and then I knew at least, that we were gonna probably end up on more of the same stuff. As soon as we hit that crappy roads again from Sisters, I was just like, screw it, we're just gonna smash through this. Let's get it done as fast as possible. And that's all we did. We just put down some serious power, just blasting through rock sections, not really thinking about anything, not thinking about equipment or popping tires, and just lock in and just smash through it as fast as we can, and until we got to the road in Tumalo basically, and then it was all road, but from there on out to the end. Yeah, day 5 was just not my favorite. Like, there was a couple good views, but the roads were just absolutely terrible, and I did not enjoy that at all. But incredible trip. I absolutely, like I said, I did have an amazing time, whether or not it seems like it. Yeah, I highly recommend this route. I think if you are going to do this route, and if you don't want to beat yourself up as much, either do it on a mountain bike or definitely put some suspension on your gravel bike. Like, it's 100% doable on a gravel bike. I think 100% more enjoyable having suspension, bigger tires. But I am super proud that me and Steve just went and handled it on gravel bikes, fully rigid, loaded, and everything. There were some sections definitely in Smith Rock where people were looking at us like, wow, look at these two dipshits. Yeah, definitely way more highs than lows on this trip. So that's kind of all I really have. I just wanted to touch on it. And, you know, I do suggest this route. I think it's a phenomenal route. It is probably my favorite bikepacking route that I have done so far, just in the terms of how challenging it was, how technical it was, how much you had to learn and adapt, how much it really like brought out your character and brought out some things in you. And I don't know, I think I really learned that I enjoy these hard type of bikepacking trips. Like, Bikepacking Washington had its own challenges, probably more so from being sick and just the highs and lows of the day. But the terrain on Washington was much more doable, and way less climbing than Oregon was. And Oregon was just so much more technical, and that kind of opened up my mind and like really showed me that I enjoy these kind of really rugged, really hard, really challenging routes. And I think I was fully blown away by this one. This is probably one I would actually do again, like I said, on the right equipment. Like, normally I finish a route, I'm like, do I want to go back and do it again, or is it a one and done? And this one I would feel like maybe at a different time of season to see like just the change in terrain and things like that would be cool. Because that was definitely like, you're in such a small area. Like, yeah, it was 300 miles, but you're in such a small area. But how diverse Oregon is, and in these little pockets of each day, was phenomenal. So that's all I got. Incredible trip. I highly recommend it. I absolutely had a blast. I learned I want some suspension finally. This is the trip that it took to realize, okay, suspension is not a bad thing. And yeah, thankful for Steven for coming out and doing that, filming it as usual, getting cool pictures, and having the time to do it. I had a blast. What a wild ride. If you guys have any questions about the trip, or I maybe left something out, drop them below. Lastly, I will let you know the final stats of the trip, because I just left day 5 hanging. The final stats for the trip ended up being 303 miles with 18,924 feet of climbing, with 27 hours and 31 minutes total ride time. Yeah, absolutely insane trip, insane route. I am definitely more hungry for bigger trips, longer trips, harder trips, for sure. The route is attached in this video and all the other videos. There's the full route from the Ride GPS, and then there's the route from every day that we did on Strava for each of the days. So you can find that down below. Yeah, that's all I got. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe, all those fun things. And I will have a life update video coming out soon, because there's a lot going on right now. All right, thanks for tuning in. Later.